Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the center of the massive chamber on Centauri Prime. The room was built for beings much larger than humans. Everything around him seemed designed to make him feel small. The ceiling stretched up so high that he could barely see it through the strange purple mist that filled the upper levels. Around him, in circular rows that climbed toward that distant ceiling, sat the representatives of 47 different alien species. Jack kept his face calm, but his heart was beating fast. He had been standing here for 3 hours, while the Galactic Council argued about what to do with humanity. His legs were starting to hurt, but he refused to show any weakness. The aliens were watching him carefully, looking for any sign that humans were as primitive as they believed. The humans had made one mistake. Just one. They had set up mining operations in a nebula that the Council claimed was protected. But the Council had never told Earth about this rule. They had never shared their maps of protected zones. They had simply waited for humans to break a law they did not know existed, and then they had pounced. Jack knew the truth. This was never about the nebula. This was about fear. Humanity had grown too fast, learned too quickly, and spread too far. In just 200 years since making first contact, humans had gone from one solar system to 37. They had built ships that rivaled Council technology. They had established colonies that thrived in conditions that killed most other species. The Council had expected humans to be grateful followers. Instead, they got ambitious competitors. 3 light-years away, Commander Kate Sullivan sat in the command chair of the UES Defiance. The ship was the pride of Earth's fleet. Built with a combination of human engineering and carefully stolen alien technology. Around her, the bridge crew worked in silence. Their eyes fixed on their screens, Kate watched the live feed from the Council chamber. A quantum communication link, completely undetectable by Council sensors, brought her every word and image from Centauri Prime. She could see Jack standing alone in that enormous room. She could see the alien representatives whispering to each other, their various forms of communication creating a strange symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic pulses. "Status report," Kate said quietly. Lieutenant Amy Harper looked up from the weapons console. "All systems armed and ready. We have target locks on 17 Council military vessels in this sector." "Communications?" Kate asked. "Standing by, Commander," answered Lieutenant Laura Hayes. "All fleet elements are in position and awaiting your signal." Kate nodded. Earth had not sent just one ship to this meeting. Hidden throughout Council space, using every stealth technology that humanity had developed, were 53 human warships. Each one was positioned near a critical Council facility. Naval bases, communication hubs, shipyards, command centers. Each one had been watching and waiting for this moment. The Council had no idea. They thought Earth's military was small and primitive. They thought humans were still learning how to build proper warships. They had no clue that human intelligence officers had been operating in Council space for decades, mapping every important target, stealing every secret, and preparing for exactly this situation. Back in the Council chamber, High Arbiter Thelkan of the Vryn Collective rose from his seat. His species looked like living crystals, their bodies reflecting light in strange patterns. When he spoke, his voice came from a translator device that turned his crystalline vibrations into sounds that other species could understand. "The Council has reached a decision," Thelkan announced. The chamber fell completely silent. Jack could hear his own breathing, loud in his ears. "Humanity stands accused of violating the preservation protocols," Thelkan continued. "The evidence is clear. Your species has shown a repeated pattern of disregard for galactic law. You expand without permission. You take what you want. You refuse to accept the guidance of species far older and wiser than yourselves." Jack wanted to speak, to argue, but the Council had not given him that right. He was here to receive judgment, not to defend his species. "Your actions have left us no choice," Thelkan said. "The Galactic Council has voted. For your repeated violations and your refusal to accept proper authority, we hereby sentence your species to exile. All human vessels must return to your home system within 90 days. All human colonies outside the Sol system must be abandoned. Earth will be quarantined from the rest of the galaxy for a period of no less than 500 years. During this time, any human ship that leaves your system will be destroyed without warning. Any attempt to communicate with Council species will be considered an act of war. The other Council members were nodding, satisfied with the decision. Some of them looked pleased, even happy. They were finally going to put the aggressive young humans in their place. Furthermore, Thelkan began, we hereby declare that any species who attempts to trade with or communicate with humanity during this exile period will face similar punishment. Earth is to be completely isolated from galactic civilization until such time as your species learns to. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Kate Sullivan did not wait for him to finish speaking. She had heard enough. The Council had just declared war on humanity, even if they did not realize it yet. Earth had prepared for this possibility. They had hoped diplomacy would work. They had hoped reason would prevail, but they had never trusted the Council to be fair. Execute Protocol Blackout, Kate said clearly. All units, weapons free. Throughout the Council chamber on Zentari Prime, hidden cameras that human agents had installed months ago captured everything. Those agents, posing as maintenance workers and civilian staff, had been patient. They had waited for this exact moment. Around the galaxy, in 50 different star systems, human warships dropped out of stealth mode and appeared on Council sensors like ghosts, becoming solid. Weapons that the Council did not know humans possessed came online. Targeting systems locked onto surprised alien vessels. In the command center of Zentari Prime's orbital defense station, alarms began to scream. Council officers rushed to their posts, trying to understand what was happening. Their sensors were showing dozens of unknown contacts. No, not unknown. Human. But that was impossible. Humans did not have that many ships. Humans did not have ships that could hide so completely. On the UES Defiance, Lieutenant Amy Harper's voice was steady as she reported, target locked. Weapons at full power. Kate watched her tactical display. Every human ship was in position. Every target was marked. The Council had 47 member species, but only 6 of them had any real military power. And in the next few minutes, that military power was going to be completely neutralized. Fire, Kate commanded. Across Council space, humanity struck. It was not an attack meant to kill. It was something far more frightening. It was a demonstration. A message. A declaration that Earth would not go quietly into isolation. In the Council chamber, Jack Morrison allowed himself a small smile as the alarms began to wail and the alien representatives started to panic. He looked up at High Arbiter Thelkan, who had frozen mid-sentence, his crystalline body pulsing with colors that indicated shock and fear. You were saying something about exile, Jack said calmly. Please, continue. Captain Ryan Blake watched the timer on his display count down to 0. His ship, the UES Shadow, had been sitting in what the aliens called quantum shadow for 6 hours. It was a space between normal space and the quantum realm, invisible to every sensor the Galactic Council possessed. Human scientists had discovered it by accident 5 years ago while trying to improve their faster-than-light drives. The Council had no idea it existed. 3 seconds. His navigator called out. 2, 1. Mark. The shadow dropped back into normal space directly beside the Council's central communication relay. The massive station looked like a wheel with 1,000 spokes, each spoke connecting to a different part of the galaxy. Every message between Council worlds passed through this hub. Without it, the Council could not coordinate their military, their government, or even their basic commerce. Launch the drones, Ryan ordered. 16 small attack drones shot out from the Shadow's launch bays. They were not there to destroy the station. Each drone carried an electromagnetic pulse device and a specialized computer virus. Within seconds, they had attached themselves to key points on the relay station's exterior. Drones in position, the weapons officer reported. Activating in 3, 2, 1. The electromagnetic pulse fired. Every system on the relay station went dark instantly. The council operators inside had no time to send a warning or activate any defenses. Then the virus began to work, spreading through the station's backup systems, locking out the operators from their own equipment. Ryan checked his tactical display. All across council space, the same thing was happening at 32 other communication hubs. Humanity had just cut the council off from itself. Every alien world was now isolated, unable to coordinate with any other world. Time to next objective, Ryan said. 14 minutes at maximum burn, his navigator answered. Make it happen. 600 light-years away, Lieutenant Amy Harper led her squadron out of Quantum Shadow, near the Vrin Collective's primary military shipyard, at Kepler 442. She had trained for this mission for 2 years, studying every detail of Vrin ship construction and military protocols. The shipyard hung in orbit around a massive gas giant, its construction docks holding 17 Vrin warships in various stages of completion. Below her, she could see the finished ships of the Vrin fleet, over 100 vessels all docked and powered down for routine maintenance. The Vrin had chosen this moment for maintenance because they believed humanity was no threat. They thought they had plenty of time to judge humans and force them back to Earth. They had made a fatal mistake. All fighters, weapons free, Amy commanded. Priority targets are the docked warships. Disable only. We are not here to kill. Her squadron split into attack formations. The Vrin sensors finally detected them, but it was far too late. Alarm systems began to wail across the shipyard. But the Vrin crews needed at least 15 minutes to power up their ships and activate weapons. Amy's squadron would be done in 8. The human fighters carried specialized weapons that Earth had developed specifically for this mission. Magnetic pulse missiles that would fry every electrical system on a ship without breaching the hull. The Vrin crews would survive, but their ships would be nothing but floating metal husks. First wave away, Amy called out as her fighter released its missiles. Across the formation, her pilots did the same. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the docked Vrin warships. The shipyard's automated defenses tried to respond, but human hackers had compromised those systems 3 months ago. The defense turrets fired at empty space, while the real missiles flew past untouched. The missiles struck home. One by one, the lights on the Vrin warships went dark. Amy watched her tactical display as each target changed from red to gray, indicating a disabled vessel. Second wave, target the construction docks, she ordered. More missiles flew. The partially constructed warships in the docks suffered the same fate. In less than 7 minutes, Amy's squadron had destroyed the combat effectiveness of the Vrin Collective's entire fleet without killing a single alien. Mission complete, she reported. On the planet Zentari Prime, Commander Ben Davis moved through the shadows beneath the Council's Strategic Command Center. He and his team of 12 operators had been hiding on this world for 6 months, living in the underground maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the government district. They had posed as traders, workers, and tourists. The Council's security had never suspected that trained human soldiers were living right under their most important government building. "We're at the access point," Ben whispered into his communicator. His team had been waiting for this moment. They knew exactly where to go and what to do. Human intelligence had mapped every system in this building, had identified every vulnerability, and had found the perfect way to strike. Ben's technical specialist, Sergeant Alex Turner, opened a maintenance panel and plugged a small device into the exposed data port. Uploading the virus now. The virus had been written by Earth's best programmers. It was designed to spread through the Council's military network and lock every piece of military hardware into standby mode. Ships, weapons, defense platforms, even personal sidearms carried by Council security forces. Everything with a computer chip would be locked down. "Upload at 30%, Alex reported quietly. 40. Footsteps echoed from somewhere above them. Ben held up his hand, and his team froze. A Council security patrol was walking through the building overhead. If they were discovered now, the mission would fail. 60%, Alex whispered. 70. The footsteps passed by. Ben let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. 80%, 90. Upload complete. The virus spread through the Council's networks at the speed of light. Every military computer system in Council space received the same instructions at the same moment. Lockdown. Enter standby mode. Reject all commands from Council operators. Accept commands only from systems with the proper human authorization codes. In orbital defense stations around a dozen Council worlds, weapons suddenly stopped responding to their operators. In military command centers, displays went dark or showed error messages. On warships throughout Council space, captains found their vessels locked in place, unable to fire weapons or even change course. The entire military force of the Galactic Council had just been neutralized by a computer virus uploaded from a maintenance tunnel. "We need to move," Ben told his team. "Security will figure out something is wrong in about 2 minutes." They moved quickly through the tunnels, following the escape route they had memorized. Behind them, alarms began to sound. Council security had discovered the breach. But they had no weapons that would fire, no communications to coordinate a response, and no ships to pursue the humans. By the time Council forces managed to reach the maintenance tunnel, Ben and his team were already on a small transport ship, breaking orbit and heading for the safety of the nearest human fleet. Back on the UES Defiance, Commander Kate Sullivan watched the status reports flow in from across Council space. Every human ship reported mission success. Every target had been hit. Not a single human casualty. Minimal alien casualties. The operation had gone exactly as planned. "Time from execution order to complete mission success?" Kate asked. 11 minutes and 32 seconds, Lieutenant Laura Hayes reported. Kate nodded slowly. 11 minutes. That was all it had taken to disable the most powerful military alliance in the known galaxy. The Council had believed themselves invincible. They had believed humans were children playing with technology they did not fully understand. They had been catastrophically wrong. "Open a channel to all Council frequencies," Kate ordered. "I want every world to hear this." "Channel open, Commander." Kate took a breath and began to speak. "This is Commander Kate Sullivan of the United Earth Ship Defiance, commanding the human fleet operating in Council space. To all Council worlds, this is not an act of war. This is a message. You attempted to pass judgment on humanity. We reject your judgment. Your fleets are disabled. Your communications are down. Your military networks are under our control. We could destroy everything you have built. We choose not to. We want peace, but we will have it on equal terms, not on our knees." She paused, letting her words sink in across dozens of alien worlds. "Stand by for a message from the President of Earth. She will explain our terms." President Lisa Crawford sat in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by screens showing data from across the galaxy. Her military advisors stood around the room's perimeter, watching the same information she was watching. Every screen showed success. Every mission had been completed. The Galactic Council had been completely caught off guard. Colonel Dan Peterson stood at her right hand, his tablet displaying real-time reports from every human fleet element. "Madam President, all forces report mission complete. We are ready for your broadcast. Number 4. When I 4-2, Lisa nodded. She had been preparing this speech for months, hoping she would never have to give it. But the Council had forced her hand. They had voted to exile humanity, to lock Earth away from the rest of the galaxy like criminals being sent to prison. They had given her no choice. "Are we broadcasting to all Council worlds?" she asked. "Yes, Madam President," answered the communications director. "We are using their own relay systems. Every inhabited planet in Council space will receive this message simultaneously." Lisa stood and walked to the camera. She wore a simple dark suit, no military uniform, no symbols of aggression. She wanted the aliens to see her as a leader, not a warrior. But she also wanted them to understand that Earth would not be pushed around anymore. "Begin transmission," she said. The camera light turned green. Across the galaxy, on 47 different worlds, billions of alien beings stopped what they were doing and watched as a human appeared on their displays. "People of the Galactic Council," Lisa began. "My name is Lisa Crawford. I am the elected president of Earth and the official representative of humanity. I speak to you today under circumstances I had hoped to avoid. Your council has voted to exile my species. They have decided that humanity is too dangerous, too aggressive, too young to be part of galactic civilization. They have ordered us back to our home system and threatened to destroy any human ship that dares to leave." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "For 200 years, we have tried to be good neighbors. When we first met your species, we were amazed. We thought we were alone in the universe. And then we discovered we were part of something much larger. We joined your council with hope and excitement. We followed your rules, even when those rules seemed designed to slow our progress. We accepted your guidance, even when that guidance felt like condescension. On the planet Thessia, capital world of the Thessian Empire, citizens gathered in public squares to watch the broadcast. They had never heard a human leader speak before. Most of them had never even seen a human. They knew only what their government told them, that humans were primitive and dangerous. "But you never truly accepted us," Lisa continued. "You tolerated us. You watched us with suspicion and fear. When we grew too quickly for your comfort, when we learned too fast and spread too far, you decided we needed to be controlled. When you could not control us, you decided to exile us. Braid," her voice hardened slightly, "you made a mistake. You assumed that because we are young, we are weak. You assumed that because we asked for guidance, we were helpless. You assumed that because we sought peace, we could not fight." Dr. Emma Ross sat in her laboratory at the Pentagon, watching the president's speech while monitoring the technical aspects of the operation. She had spent 10 years studying council technology, finding its weaknesses, learning how to beat it. Every weapon that had been fired today, every virus that had been unleashed, had been built or designed with her help. She knew the council was probably trying desperately to understand how humans had done this. They were probably examining their systems, looking for clues about how their entire military network had been compromised. They would find nothing. Human programmers had been too careful, too clever. "Today you learned the truth about humanity," President Crawford said. "We are not the species you thought we were. While you debated what to do with us, we had already prepared for every possibility. While you planned our exile, we had already positioned forces throughout your territory. While you congratulated yourselves on being wise and ancient, we were studying you, learning from you, and surpassing you." On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Commander Kate Sullivan watched the president's speech with pride. This was humanity's moment. This was when Earth stepped out of the shadows and announced to the galaxy that humans would not be ignored or dismissed anymore. "Your fleets are disabled," Lisa said. "Not destroyed. Disabled. Your communication networks are down. Not destroyed. Down. Your military computers are locked. Not erased. Locked. We could have killed billions of you today. We could have reduced your worlds to ash. We chose not to." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Do you understand what that means? It means that every action we have taken today was carefully controlled. It means we showed restraint even while demonstrating overwhelming force. It means we do not want war. But make no mistake, if you force us to fight, we will not lose." In the council chamber on Zentari Prime, the alien representatives sat in stunned silence, watching the same broadcast. Admiral Jack Morrison had been released from the defendant's circle, and now he stood watching with them. He could see the fear on their faces, or at least the alien equivalents of fear. High Arbiter Thelkon's crystalline body was pulsing with rapid color changes that indicated extreme distress. The proud leader who had been so confident just minutes ago now looked broken and confused. "Here are our terms," President Crawford announced. "First, Earth will have full membership in the Galactic Council with equal voting rights. No restrictions, no probationary periods, no special rules. We will be treated as equals, or we will leave your council and build our own alliances." She held up a second finger. "Second, the preservation protocols will be renegotiated. Humanity will have input into which areas of space are protected and why. We will not accept rules made without our participation." A third finger. "Third, all charges against humanity regarding the nebula mining operation are dropped. We broke no law that we knew existed. You cannot punish us for violating rules you never shared." She held up a fourth finger. "Fourth, there will be no retaliation against Earth or any human colony for our defensive actions today. You attempted to exile us. We defended ourselves. Any attempt to punish us for that will be considered an act of war." Lisa lowered her hand and stared directly into the camera. "You have 24 hours to accept these terms. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why humanity learned to split the atom before we learned to leave our planet. We will show you what happens when a species that evolved through constant warfare decides to stop holding back." The threat hung in the air like a blade. "But I hope you choose peace," Lisa said, her voice softening slightly. "We do not want to be your enemies. We want to be your equals. We want to contribute to galactic civilization, to share our knowledge and learn from yours. We want to explore the universe together, not separately." She paused again. "The choice is yours. Accept our terms and we will restore your systems, withdraw our forces, and return to the diplomatic table. Refuse our terms and discover what 7 billion angry humans can do when their survival is threatened." Captain Chris Martinez stood in the Council Administration Building on Centauri Prime, finally able to reveal his true identity after 5 years of living as a fake Thessian merchant. He had been one of dozens of deep cover agents that Earth had planted throughout Council space. They had all waited patiently for this moment. Gathering information, making contacts, preparing for the day when humanity would need to strike. Now his job was to monitor the Council's response. He watched as confused alien officials ran through the hallways, trying to coordinate a response without any working communication systems. It would have been funny if the stakes were not so high. President Crawford's final words echoed through every Council world. "We are humanity. We are young, but we are not weak. We are peaceful, but we are not harmless. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues, that crossed oceans in wooden boats and reached the moon with primitive rockets. We are the species that fought 10,000 wars on one small planet and still managed to unite and reach for the stars." She stood tall. "You tried to exile us. You failed. Now you will treat us with the respect we have earned. 24 hours. Choose wisely." Tenor. 20, 20, 20, 20, 24 hours. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, on 47 different worlds, billions of aliens sat in silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. The young species from Earth, the ones they had dismissed as primitive and aggressive, had just defeated the entire Galactic Council in 11 minutes. And they had done it with such precision and control that the Council could not even claim it was a mindless attack. Every action had been measured. Every strike had been calculated. Humanity had proven they were not just strong. They were smart. In the Situation Room, President Crawford sat down heavily in her chair. Colonel Dan Peterson approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. "That was well done, Madam President," he said quietly. Lisa shook her head. "We will see. I just threatened most of the known galaxy. Either they will see reason and negotiate, or we will have started a war that could destroy us all." "They will negotiate," Dan said with confidence. "They have no choice. We proved we can beat them. Now they have to decide if they want us as allies or enemies." Lisa looked at the screens showing human forces throughout Council space. Young men and women, far from home, holding weapons they hoped they would not have to use again. 24 hours, she said quietly. Either we just saved humanity, or we just doomed it. We will know soon enough. High Arbiter Thelkan sat in the emergency council chamber, his crystalline body dim and pulsing slowly, with colors that indicated defeat and confusion. Around him, representatives from the council's most powerful species gathered in person or via hologram. The humans had returned some of their communications abilities, but only enough to allow this meeting. Everything else remained locked down. How did they move so many ships without our detection? Ambassador Court of the Thessian Empire demanded. His blue-skinned face showed anger and frustration. Our sensor networks cover every major travel route. We should have seen them coming. Captain Chris Martinez stepped forward from where he had been standing in the shadows of the chamber. The council members turned to look at him. Some with suspicion, others with outright hostility. They all knew who he really was now. The friendly Thessian merchant, who had operated in their government district for 5 years, was actually a human intelligence officer. Because we have been here longer than you knew, Chris said calmly. Much longer. We did not just arrive yesterday. We have been embedding ourselves in your society for decades. Court's face darkened with anger. You dare to admit espionage in this chamber? I dare to tell you the truth, Chris replied. You treated us like children. You gave us restrictions without explanations. You made rules without including us. Did you really think we would just blindly trust you? We learned everything about you. We studied your military, your technology, your culture. We found your weaknesses because you never bothered to hide them. You thought we were too primitive to be a threat. A representative from the Vrin Collective, a smaller crystal being named Shanvor, spoke up. How many of you are there? How many human agents have infiltrated our worlds? Chris smiled slightly. Enough. Some are military intelligence like me. Others are scientists, studying your technology. Some are just normal humans living their lives, but keeping their eyes open and reporting what they see. You let us in because you thought you needed to civilize us. We used that access to prepare for the day you would turn on us. Thelkan raised one crystalline appendage for silence. This debate is pointless. The question now is, what we do next. The humans have given us 24 hours to accept their terms. We must decide our response. In orbit around Centauri Prime, aboard the UES Defiance, Commander Kate Sullivan received status reports from human forces across Council territory. Every ship was maintaining position. Every target was still locked down. The waiting was the hardest part now. They had struck their blow. Now they had to see how the Council would respond. Ma'am, Lieutenant Laura Hayes called from the communications station. We are receiving surrender signals from Council military commanders in 17 different sectors. Kate nodded. Accept all surrenders. Make it clear that we are treating all prisoners according to established protocols. Full dignity and rights. We want them to know we are not barbarians. On the surface of Centauri Prime, Sergeant Alex Turner walked through the streets of the capital city with his security team. They wore full combat gear, but carried their weapons in a non-threatening position. Their orders were clear. Maintain order, but show respect to civilians. Demonstrate strength, but also humanity. Alex and his team had set up a field medical station in one of the city's main squares. Human medics were treating injured aliens, both civilians hurt in the panic following the attack, and military personnel wounded during the brief exchanges of fire that had occurred at a few locations. An elderly Vrin civilian approached the medical station slowly, her crystalline body cracked and dim with age. She seemed frightened, but determined. Do you need medical attention? Alex asked through his translator device. The Vrin woman studied him carefully. You are the invaders? The ones who attacked us? We are human soldiers, Alex said carefully. We acted in defense of our species, but we are not here to hurt civilians. Do you need help? She seemed surprised. Your kind speaks of defense, but you have conquered us. No, Alex said firmly. We have disabled your military to protect ourselves. We have not conquered anyone. Look around. Your city is untouched. Your people are safe. We are here to make sure it stays that way until our leaders reach an agreement. The old Vryn gestured to the medical station. Why do you help us? Because we are not monsters, Alex replied. Our leaders told your leaders that we want peace. They meant it. We only fight when we have to. The Vryn woman studied the human medics working on injured aliens. A human doctor was carefully treating a Thessian soldier's burns. Another medic was setting a broken limb on a small insectoid creature. They worked with the same care they would show to human patients. Perhaps we were wrong about your kind, the old Vryn said quietly. Back in the council chamber, the debate was growing heated. Some species wanted to reject the human demands and mobilize whatever forces they could. Others argued for immediate acceptance of the terms. A few suggested trying to negotiate modifications to the human demands. Ambassador Court slammed his hand on the table. We cannot simply surrender to their demands. They have humiliated us in front of the entire galaxy. If we accept these terms, we look weak. We are weak, said a quiet voice from across the chamber. Everyone turned to look at Representative Valshar of the Kepler Union, a species known for their logical thinking. The humans have proven they can defeat us anytime they choose. Pride will not change that reality. We must decide what matters more, our dignity or our survival. They have us in a trap, Valshar continued. If we refuse and fight, they will destroy us. They have already shown they have that capability. If we accept, we must live with the knowledge that we were outplayed by a species barely 2 centuries old. But we will live. Thelkon's body pulsed with resignation. Captain Martinez, will the humans really release our systems and withdraw if we accept their terms? Chris nodded. Yes. President Crawford meant what she said. We do not want to rule you. We do not want to destroy you. We simply want to be treated as equals. And if we refuse? Chris's expression turned serious. Then my people will do what they have always done when their survival is threatened. They will fight with everything they have. And based on what you have seen today, I do not think you want to find out what everything means. 15 hours had passed since President Crawford's ultimatum. On Earth, in the White House Situation Room, Lisa Crawford reviewed reports from across the galaxy. The picture was becoming clearer. Most council species were leaning toward acceptance. A few hardliners were pushing for resistance, but they were in the minority. Colonel Dan Peterson entered the room with new intelligence. Madam President, our agents report that the Council is preparing to take a vote on our terms. How do we look? Lisa asked. Better than expected. The Vryn Collective is going to accept. The Thessian Empire is split but leaning toward acceptance. 3 smaller species have already privately indicated they will vote yes. The only strong resistance is coming from the court faction within the Thessians, and a few military commanders who think they can still win a fight. Lisa felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. What about civilian reactions on council worlds? Dan smiled slightly. That is the interesting part. Our psychological operations teams report that many council civilians are actually impressed by our restraint. They expected us to kill millions if we attacked. Instead, we disabled military targets and immediately started providing humanitarian aid. Some of them are starting to question why their leaders portrayed us as mindless savages. In the council chamber, the final debate was ending. Thelkon called for order as the chamber fell silent. We have argued long enough, he said. The time has come to vote. The question before us is simple. Do we accept humanity's terms and negotiate a new relationship as equals? Or do we refuse and face the consequences? Ambassador Court stood one last time. If we accept, we set a terrible precedent. Any species with enough military might can threaten us and force us to give them what they want. Valshar responded immediately. The humans did not start this. We voted to exile them first. They responded to our aggression. not the other way around. And they have shown remarkable restraint given their clear military superiority. I fear what happens if we reject this offer and force them to be less restrained next time. Thelkan raised his appendages. The vote is called. All in favor of accepting humanity's terms. Indicate now. One by one, the representatives made their choices. The process took nearly an hour, as each species consulted with their home governments. When it was finished, Thelkan announced the results. The council has voted. By a count of 33 in favor, 11 opposed, and 3 abstaining, we accept humanity's terms. On the UES defiance, Kate Sullivan received the message from the council. She felt relief wash over her. They had done it. They had defended humanity, without starting a war that would have killed billions. Send the release codes, she ordered. Return all council systems to their control. Begin withdrawal of all forces to designated positions. Across council space, locked military systems began to reactivate. Communication networks came back online. Disabled ships found their controls responding again. The council was getting their military back, but they would never forget how easily humanity had taken it away. Kate opened a channel to all human forces. This is Commander Sullivan to all fleet elements. Mission success. The council has accepted our terms. Stand down from combat readiness, but maintain defensive positions. We are not leaving council space yet, not until the treaties are signed. But the shooting part of this operation is over. She sat back in her command chair and allowed herself a small smile. We did good work today, she said to her bridge crew. Earth can be proud. 3 months after the incident that became known as the 11-Minute War, the Galactic Council reconvened in their grand chamber on Centauri Prime. But this time, something was different. A new seat had been added to the circle of representatives. The seat bore the symbol of Earth, a blue and green planet with a single moon. Ambassador Kate Sullivan walked into the chamber wearing the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. She had been promoted from military commander to Earth's first full ambassador to the Galactic Council. The irony was not lost on her. 3 months ago, she had been commanding the fleet that had disabled Council forces across the galaxy. Now she was here to negotiate peace and cooperation. The other representatives watched her enter, some with respect, some with lingering resentment, all with a new understanding that humanity could not be dismissed or controlled. High Arbiter Thelkan called the session to order. His crystalline body had regained some of its former brightness, though he still moved with less confidence than before. The events of 3 months ago had shaken him deeply. This council now recognizes Ambassador Kate Sullivan as the official representative of Earth and humanity, Thelkan announced formally. She holds full voting rights and all privileges of council membership. Kate nodded in acknowledgement. Thank you, High Arbiter. I am honored to represent my species in this forum. I hope that together, we can build a better future than our troubled past. Some of the representatives shifted uncomfortably. The past 3 months had been difficult for them. Multiple investigations had been launched into how humanity had so thoroughly penetrated council security. The results had been humbling. Human agents had been found in dozens of important positions. Human intelligence operations had compromised systems that the council thought were completely secure. The first matter before this council, Thelkan continued, is Ambassador Sullivan's proposal to reform the preservation protocols. Ambassador, you have the floor. Kate stood and activated a holographic display. Thank you, High Arbiter. The current preservation protocols were written 500 years ago by species who had different needs and different technologies than exist today. I propose we update these protocols to reflect modern realities. HFY Anna. Gone. She manipulated the display to show maps of protected zones throughout the galaxy. Under current protocols, 37% of all resource-rich regions are completely closed to development. No species can access them for any reason. I propose we change this to a system of managed access. Resources can be harvested using approved methods that minimize environmental damage. Independent inspectors from multiple species would verify compliance. Ambassador Court of the Thessian Empire spoke up. And why should we trust that humanity will follow these new rules any better than they followed the old ones? Kate met his gaze directly. Because we will help write these rules. That is the entire point, Ambassador Court. We broke rules we did not know existed because no one invited us to participate in creating them. Include us in the process, and we will honor the results. Representative Val Shar of the Kepler Union added support. The human proposal is logical. The old system was inefficient and led to conflict. A new system with broader input would serve all species better. The debate continued for hours, but eventually the vote was called. The reform proposal passed by a comfortable margin. It was the first of many changes that would reshape how the Galactic Council operated. On Earth, President Lisa Crawford met with Colonel Dan Peterson in the Oval Office. They were reviewing reports from across human-controlled space. The news was largely positive. Our diplomatic relations with 32 Council species have improved significantly, Dan reported. 12 species have requested formal trade agreements with Earth. 6 have proposed joint scientific research projects. Lisa smiled. And the ones who still hate us? Down to just 5 species, Dan said. And even they are keeping quiet about it. No one wants to be seen as opposing humanity after what happened. Lisa leaned back in her chair. We took a terrible risk, Dan. We could have started a war that would have destroyed us. But we did not. Dan replied. We showed strength and restraint at the same time. That is what made the difference. We proved we could fight, but we also proved we did not want to. On Centauri Prime, Captain Chris Martinez had officially revealed his identity as a human intelligence officer and had been reassigned as a military liaison to the Council. He walked through the government district freely now, no longer needing to hide who he was. Some aliens still avoided him, uncomfortable with the idea that he had fooled them for so long. Others were curious about him. An old Vryn civilian approached him in the market district. Chris recognized her as the same woman who had spoken to Sergeant Alex Turner during the occupation. Her crystalline body was still dim with age, but she seemed less afraid now. Captain Martinez, she said formally. Of course, Chris replied. How can I help you? I wanted to thank you, she said. My grandson was injured during the fighting. Your medics treated him. They saved his life. I judged your species harshly before. I was wrong. Chris felt a wave of emotion. This was what they had been fighting for. Not conquest or revenge, but simple recognition and respect. Your thanks mean a great deal, he said sincerely. We do not want to be your enemies. We never did. In orbit around a distant world called Kepler 442, Lieutenant Amy Harper's fighter squadron now flew joint patrols with Vryn military vessels. The first few patrols had been tense and awkward, but over time, the human and Vryn pilots had learned to work together. They had even started sharing tactical knowledge and training techniques. Amy flew in formation with a Vryn pilot named Zekthar. His ship was sleek and graceful, very different from the more angular human fighters. But both designs were effective in their own ways. Human flight leader. Zekthar's voice came through her communicator. Your formation technique is impressive. Very aggressive, but controlled. Amy smiled inside her helmet. Thank you. Zekthar. Your ships are incredibly fast. I would not want to race you in a straight line. Perhaps someday we race for sport instead of war, Zekthar suggested. I would like that, Amy replied. Back on Centauri Prime, the Council took up another important matter. Several smaller species that had long felt marginalized by the Council's dominant powers were proposing reforms to voting procedures. They had been inspired by humanity's forceful demand for equal treatment. Ambassador Kate Sullivan spoke in support of the smaller species. Earth knows what it feels like to be dismissed and ignored by those who think they know better. We support any reform that gives all species a fair voice in this council. Her support was unexpected, Some council members had thought humanity would ally only with the powerful species. But Kate had different plans. She wanted to build a coalition of species who believed in fairness and equality, not just raw power. Over the following weeks, the motion passed. Voting procedures were reformed to give smaller species more influence. It was another victory for the new order that was slowly taking shape. 6 months after the 11-minute war, the council held a ceremony to formally close the investigations into the events of that day. A monument was erected in the main square of Centauri Prime's capital city. It was a simple stone pillar with inscriptions in all council languages. The inscription read, "Here the galaxy learned that strength and wisdom are not the same as age and tradition. May we all remember that every species deserves respect, regardless of how long they have walked among the stars." Admiral Jack Morrison attended the ceremony along with other human officers who had participated in the operation. He stood beside High Arbiter Thelkan as the monument was unveiled. "Do you think they will ever truly forgive us?" Jack asked quietly. Thelkan's crystalline body pulsed with complex colors. "Forgiveness is less important than understanding. We understand you now. We understand that humans are not children to be managed or primitives to be civilized. You are a force that must be respected. Is that enough?" Jack pressed. "It is a beginning," Thelkan replied. "Trust takes time to build. But at least now, we build it on a foundation of honesty, rather than illusion." On Earth, in bars and gathering places across human territory, soldiers and officers who had participated in the operation gathered to remember. They had been part of something historic, the day that humanity had stood up to the entire galaxy and won. Commander Ryan Blake, now promoted to captain of his own ship, raised a glass in a bar near the Houston spaceport. Around him sat pilots, soldiers, and intelligence officers who had served in the operation. "To the 11 minutes that changed everything," Ryan said. "To the 11 minutes," the others echoed, raising their own glasses. A young lieutenant who had not been part of the operation asked, "What was it like?" "Those 11 minutes?" Ryan thought about it carefully. "Terrifying. Exciting. The most important thing any of us will probably ever do. We knew that if we failed, Earth might be destroyed. But we also knew that if we succeeded, we would change the course of human history." "And now?" the lieutenant asked. "Now we live with what we did," Ryan said. "We proved we can fight. Now we have to prove we can build something better than endless war." Across the galaxy, in council space and beyond, humanity's actions on that day continued to echo. Species that had never considered humans a threat now studied Earth carefully. Species that had dismissed human technology now realized they had been dangerously wrong. But perhaps most importantly, species that had suffered under council policies that they considered unfair now saw hope. If humans could stand up to the council and force change, maybe others could too. Not through violence necessarily, but through courage and determination. Ambassador Kate Sullivan submitted her weekly report to President Crawford. In it, she described the progress being made, the friendships being formed, and the challenges still ahead. "We are not yet fully trusted," she wrote. "And there are still those who would like to see us fail. But we have earned something more valuable than trust. We have earned respect." The galaxy now knows that humanity will not be pushed around, but also that we seek cooperation rather than domination. This is a good foundation to build on. She ended her report with a note about the future. "Our children will live in a galaxy where Earth is not a footnote, but a major power. They will have opportunities we could never have imagined. But they will also have responsibilities. We must make sure they understand that power without wisdom leads only to destruction. We won our place at the table through strength. We will keep it through wise leadership." President Crawford read the report and felt satisfied. The gamble had paid off. Earth was secure. Humanity's future was brighter than ever, but she also understood that the real work was just beginning. Building peace was harder than winning wars. Creating trust was more difficult than demonstrating power. She called Colonel Dan Peterson into her office. Dan, I want you to start a new program. We need to train a generation of diplomats and peacekeepers who understand both strength and compassion. We need people who can fight if necessary but prefer to talk. People who can be tough when needed, but know when to be gentle. Dan nodded. I know just the people to run that program. Let me make some calls. As he left, Lisa looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. Somewhere up there, beyond that sky, humanity's ships were patrolling alongside former enemies. Human scientists were working with alien researchers. Human traders were building businesses on distant worlds. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth. Humanity had struck before those words were complete, and in 11 minutes, they had changed everything. But the real story was not those 11 minutes of violence. It was the months and years that followed, when humans proved they could be trusted with power, when they showed that a young species could teach old species new ways of thinking, when they demonstrated that respect must be earned. But once earned, it opened doors to amazing possibilities. In a quiet moment, Lisa allowed herself to feel proud. Proud of her people, proud of what they had accomplished, and hopeful for what they would build next. The future was unwritten. But for the first time in human history, Earth would help write the story of the entire galaxy.